make your own brushes in Photoshop and the reasons why. Just before we do, we're going to do something similar to the first exercise. I've got this image here in Illustrator, and you'll see that I've put it on various layers. And this is so that when I save it, it'll open up this way in Photoshop. Now, the first thing is on Illustrator, what color mode your document is. I'd have it on RGB. And this means that when you go File, Export, Export As, and you can choose a Photoshop file, give it a name, export. It'll come up with this option box. If it's RGB, then it'll give you the option to say write layers. If your document is set up as CMYK, then you just need to change it. But the important thing is you have write layers. Resolution is important. Put it on 300 to make it nice and big, make it high, and then simply go OK. Now I've got it open in Photoshop at the moment. If I jump to it, and this is how it opens up, and you can see you've got all the layers set up there as well. So let's go and make a brush so that we can have a play with this. And I'm going to use this image here. So if I select everything and cut it, so that's Control A, Control X, go to my channels, make a new channel, Control V to paste it. Now I'll just go Control L, which brings up the levels. And what I do is I can bring in the contrast and everything again, but this time I can use the middle slider. And usually what I do is I grunge it up. I make it a lot darker, because what I'm looking for now is I'm looking for areas that I might be able to make an interesting brush with. You can go and lighten and darken areas, because it's about isolating areas now to make a good brush. These are Dover images, so they might actually not be so good to make a brush from, because they're kind of pure black and white images, and sometimes you can do more when you've got an image that's a bit grayer. So I'm going to go to this image, which is a bit more photographic. If I paste this into the channels, go Command L, same sort of thing. Now what you'll see with this image, because it's a photograph, that when you're darkening and lightening things, you can get some pretty good images happening. If I look around the face and stuff, trying to look for some shapes that'll make a nice brush. Okay, so let's just go OK with this, and we can see what we can find. You still have the dodge and burn, so remember dodge on highlights, but I can put burn on shadows, and again this will darken in some of those dark areas. So let's have a look. So I'm going to have a look at an area like this, and I can isolate. What I want to do is I want to isolate it off. So I'll get black, and I'm just filling in these areas. So I'm looking to isolate an area that I can turn into a brush. So I'm going to have this as one brush. If I go Command I or Control I, Control D, get rid of that selection, I can select that area, and then I can go Edit, Define Brush Preset, I've given it a name, and now I'm going to Control I again. I'm going to look and see if I can find another area to get an interesting brush out of. This area here, what I can do is I can go into my dodge on highlights, try and brighten some of this up, and then I'll go to burn, and I'm trying to darken in this area again, isolating it so that I've got this this brush. Get a black brush. It's on the one I just made, so I'm gonna take it back to a normal one. It's easier to isolate with that. Control I again, so that we're looking at black and white. Edit, define brush. Okay, so that's it. So I've got my brush work. I'm just going to close that image, and I'm going to go back to this this head here. Now I'm going to make a I'm still on the alpha channel, so go to the layers. I'm going to make a new layer at the top, just fill it with white, black and white, just so we can see these brushes. So at the moment with this brush, if I drag with it, it gives a very kind of computery feel to it. So what you do is with the brushes is this little folder beside it. If I click on it, it brings up a whole lot of options, and you can see the brush down here. So if I go shape dynamics, I can change the jitter, the diameter, the angle is a really important one. You can see it changing down here. Roundness, how it's kind of condensing and everything together. The scattering is the way it kind of pushes apart. The count, I can really blob it in a bit. In this case, because of the kind of brush it is, I think that'll work well. I want to kind of condense it up a wee bit. There's an option here where you can go new brush preset, and if I save this, I can capture the size if I want and all that sort of thing. It just means it's going to save it in the brushes, and I won't have to keep redoing it. Now this, when I paint with it, gives quite a different quality. So let's try the other brush. Remember, I've got my preset here now. I've got that first brush, and I want to do the same sort of thing. Here's the brush here. It'll give that kind of really computery feel. So I go to my dynamics, size, diameter, jitter is the important one, roundness, the scattering, kind of pushing that apart a wee bit, the count, if I want to kind of condense it up a wee bit, draw with it now, and you get a much more realistic brush. So it takes away that that quality that you get that makes it look really kind of computer driven. So if I get rid of that now, two ways that you can use these brushes that can be really nice. So in this case, so you can see the brush is quite old. It's got a long bit sticking out that I didn't quite notice. I should have probably saved the preset, but anyway, I'll go to the eyes. So the eyes, I'll choose a color. I want something that's kind of maybe a bit creamy, kind of off-white. Option or Alt, Shift, and Backspace will fill that color, but it'll leave the transparency. Now I'm going to get a slightly darker color. Going to make that brush smaller, and I'm going to paint through it. But what I need to do is I need to make a layer above it. You can see I'm kind of darkening up through there. Let go. Do it again. I can make that color a wee bit darker if I want. Just get another bit through there, so kind of grunging up the eye a little bit. I've still got all these qualities like multiply the transparency if I want to lighten it off. And then what I do is I come down between these two layers, I hold the Alt, and I will see the icon change, and when I click, it will clip it so that this image only shows up on the eye. Because those eyes are on the same layer, it's also doing this one, so I can kind of add in a bit onto there if I want. So let's have a look at the next bit. Let's have a look at the head. So if we go to the head, choose whatever color I want. Oh, I need to go Alt, Shift, make sure I hold the Shift so it only colors that area. I might just make this boundary a wee bit bigger. And so now, same thing, I'm going to make a new layer just above it. This time I'll grab my other brush. Try this preset. Make it a bit darker. Maybe not the greatest brush in the world, but I can kind of clip it on. The other thing as well is that you can still make masks. So if I come down here, I can make a mask, and this is added onto the color. And so what I can do with this is I'll go to my other brush. Actually, I made another brush yesterday. You can see I didn't save the preset on this one, so if I wanted to mess with this, I'd need to go in here and do the play with the shape dynamics and everything. Again, this is a much nicer brush. I've just picked a better area to make a brush from. And with a brush like this, sometimes what I do is I just make it big and I just click. You can end up with some really nice textural stuff going on as well. The other thing as well is if I click on the actual layer that has the image on it, I can make a mask here. And now when you paint with black, what you are doing is you are actually eating into the image itself. So it's not just about the patterning, it's now affecting the see-throughness of the image. And I can show that by making a layer, dragging it right to the bottom, and I'll just add a color in. Alt backspace will fill the whole layer, and so you can see the way that it's kind of eating into the image. I can still do things like I've made a new layer. If I control click on that layer, so that's not the see, I can control click and get the mask, but I'm control clicking on the layer, so it's not taking the mask into account. Now I can come down to this layer and I'll go, okay, I'm going to add another color in, and I can just fill it. So you can really do some very interesting things. But the main thing with the brush is making your own brushes. You have an element of control. Because if I have a look in here, and I know I've got a whole lot of other brushes kind of added in, but the general brushes, very generic, and even some of the more full-on brushes, they're quite simplistic. So it's good to be able to make your own brushes and have an element of control over that.